Again. Um,
Well,
yeah, y'all, give me a second. The changes you made may not be saved. Nope, never mind. We're just going to sit here. All right, and boom.
well,
Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan. And this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have an extra special guest. He's actually the co-host of the show, and y'all know him, y'all love him. His name is Simba, or if you want to call him by his actual name, you can. But we're just going to go ahead and go with Simba right now. So, Simba, how have you been lately?
dude, I have been on a life-changing journey. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but a lot of great moments, A lot of
Mm-hmm.
historical pivotal marks that I've hit. So,
Heck yeah, man. I'm super excited to hear all that. And watching your journey on Facebook has been inspiring and awesome as well. But real quick, you are kind of sideways.
okay, I was gonna ask you if you could see that, but okay. For some reason,
Yeah.
it like went sideways on my end, and I don't know how to change that. We're just gonna have to go with that.
Am I sideways on your screen?
It went sideways when we went live, so I didn't know if like that was a thing, but there we go. Is it better?
Okay.
I didn't. I was hoping you wouldn't be able to see that.
Um, yeah, totally. I saw it change like after I hit go live, and I was like, "What's going on?" So, um,
Bloop.
but Simba, it is super awesome to have you back on because I mean, it's been a hot minute since we've actually like had you on the show. So, what do you want to like? What's your proudest achievement that you've gotten so far within the last year?
God, there's so many, and so many of them you wouldn't think were like should be like the biggest highlight. But one of the biggest highlights for me was when I became HIV undetectable. You know,
Ooh, yeah, yeah, that's a big one.
it
Really?
was a big one because it kind of gave me the time to accept it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it wasn't something that I truly was like wasn't on my bingo card,
Mm-hmm.
but it happened and it wasn't fatal. And the fact that it happened so quick was just that my body took on to the medicine
Mm.
very, very well. I was close to an AIDS diagnosis. So the way that it was described was like at a certain number of your T count and the virus,
Mm-hmm.
it's an AIDS diagnosis. And even if once you get better, you still have an AIDS diagnosis. But I
Mm.
was like, right there. So
Huh.
it was kind of scary news at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And about 32 days later was when I had my results that said undetectable. And so
Huh.
me and my friends went out and made a big deal, celebrated it. And it wasn't like the thing, like, like when the lady at the freaking restaurant was like, "What are we celebrating?" We were like, how do you tell somebody, like, with a smile on your face, like, "Oh, that I'm undetectable already"?
Well, I mean, I guess you could just be straightforward and honest about it, right? Because it's something that you're proud of, so why hide it? But
Right.
you're right. Like a lot of people would kind of look at you and be like, "Huh?" Because I know if I heard that, I'd be like, "Interesting." But it'd be more because it's a first that I've seen someone be celebratory about it, which is definitely something to celebrate, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess it was like celebrating like life kind of goes on.
mm-hmm,
I mean, it's the story of it happening was kind of like a sad pity story. And like
mm.
that's what I thought. Like whenever it happened, the first person I reached out to was Kelly,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and she was like, "You won't be alone. Let me help you. I've set up these appointments. I've talked to these people. All I need is the go from you. What do you want me to do?" Like she
Mm.
gave me the choice, but she did like the footwork for me because I was
Mm-hmm.
just like mentally and emotionally not available
Yeah.
to do so. But she didn't let me be alone. The nurses there were like, "You won't be alone." She actually said, "What's your favorite Taylor Swift song?" We played it while the results were coming in.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, no matter what happens, you're not going to be alone. So let's go through this. And then the very next day, actually, that same day as I was leaving the clinic, I had volunteered for a conference.
Mhm.
And so I was like, fuck, I'm not going. But I decided to go.
Uh-huh.
And somebody pulled me aside, and he'd kind of been watching me struggle. Nobody really knew what was going on, but he
Mhm.
kind of just pulled me aside, and he's like, you don't have to suffer alone. And that was like the third time I'd heard that, and so I was like, okay, let me let people in, and let me like
Mhm.
utilize, let me live, or let me hurt while
Mhm.
others carry me.
Mm.
And I did that, and then like 30 days later, it was just like we had gone through so much with so many people
Mhm.
that it was like, is the medicine going to be available to me because of certain aspects?
Uh-huh.
And so, how long is it going to be available to me? And there was just so many milestones to get, so many hurdles.
Uh-huh.
Because of
Yeah.
course you need an ID to get medication, and you need, yeah. And
Yeah.
it was a battle, but once it was over, it was so like well worth the celebration.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Like that is a huge milestone. It's an accomplishment of all sorts, and I love how you said that it was exercise and allowing yourself to hurt while others carry you. You know, because we're so used to being like, oh no, I got this. I know for myself, I'm super duper independent, and that is one of my biggest weaknesses. And I thought it was a strength, but it's really not. So, how did you find yourself able to actually be vulnerable? Like, was it from Kelly actually kind of like allowing you the first space to do so? Or was it more of an inkling that you had to let someone in? Otherwise, you've kind of, we, in our experiences, we've had a lot of moments where it's like we got this. We know we can reach out for help, but we still stonewall people and we don't let them in. And so, did you sit there and like kind of reflect on those experiences before she reached out and gave you the space? And whenever you saw the space, it was like, oh yeah, I'm taking it.
So, yes, I think I'm pretty sure I reflected it because my sponsor's favorite line is, "How has that worked out for you in the past?" And if you think about it, it doesn't. When I look at hurt as like hurt, regardless of the situation,
Mm-hmm.
um, going through the same thing like back at when we were roommates. I was in a hurting stage, but
Mm-hmm.
I chose to hide it from everybody, and it didn't get me anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What got me to the decisions and the actions that got me HIV were because I was hurting, and I refused to let the world know that I was hurting and falling down and that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to let anybody know that. And at this point, I had already lost that battle so many times that I was like, I can't do this. And then Kelly offering that space of like, look, I just need you to show up. But what
Mm-hmm.
do you want me to do? Like it was still on me to like say yes, but she was
Uh-huh.
still like right there, ready and willing.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I reached out to my sponsor. He was the second person to know. Then my immediate friends were like the next to know. And slowly it just became easier to say what I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only to like my support system because like I still wouldn't go to meetings and share where I was at. I still wasn't ready to let the world know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was, I shared it proudly of like, this is my story, this is what I'm going through,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just who I am. It just is. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say it's like I was chosen by the world to go through this, but it definitely was a consequence of my actions, and I took the hit, but I didn't fall.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. You took the hit, but you didn't fall, and it really does just show a lot of resilience there, and a lot of just you're doing a whole lot of good just by reflecting on past experiences. And I think that that's something a lot of us do, and we don't necessarily do it in a right balance though, because it's kind of like, what if I did this different, you know? And it's stuck in that what if I did, and you added on, what if I did this now? You know? So I love that. That's awesome.
Kelly has the most awesome ways of like reading people. I'm
Mm,
sure you know that.
yeah. Yeah.
Because for the first 6 months, things were going good, and so I'm always talking to her about the good changes and the good
Mm-hmm.
things happening. But she asked me a specific question. She's like, "How are you doing about the HIV?" And I was like, "Why would you start
Mm.
off with that? Like, why would you like?" And she pointed out that ever since that had happened, I would grab a pillow and I would
Uh-huh.
sit on it, like hiding. And she's like, "I just feel like you're still hiding a part of like you're hurting."
Mm-hmm.
And we did these exercises of like what I would say to him, to the
Mm-hmm.
person, what I would do, and like she just let me have that space of like being angry and saying like I wanna hit you. I wanna like beat the hell out of you. She gave me a pillow. I'm gonna hit it. But I never realized that how much anger I hold in, even though like it's like justified sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. But that's what I mean. Like there was so much into that whole scenario
Uh-huh.
that at the end of the day, it was worth celebrating once I knew I was in the green light. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
For
wasn't one of those things to hide and be like, "Whew, that happened. I'm safe." It was more like, "Holy shit, that was exhausting."
Yeah. Damn, that's really good. I just love this because I know Kelly, of course, because she was also my counselor. So sorry about name dropping you, but we're not going to say your last name. So there's a lot of Kellys in the world. So if you're a Kelly out there,
Kelly Crawford.
real quick, Simba, your audio changed kind of. Did your earbuds disconnect?
No, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. It's just like different. Like, and now that was weird. It felt like electronic signal just kind of changed again. Anyways, I
Cool.
think we're good. So I was just making sure that you can still hear me decently.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
Okay,
I hear you.
cool. Um, but one of those things that you mentioned, like, so I know that we spoke before, like hit record, and I was like, I don't necessarily want to air this one out, but I mean, I'll do so, but without name bombing, I guess. Because whenever we were roommates in Oxford, well, I mean, there's a name bomb. Whoops. I'll just leave it at that. Oxford. In this specific chapter, whenever we were roommates, I was going through a lot of pain myself, just out of Nehemiah, and sitting there like scared. That was the biggest thing. I was scared. I was hurt. I still didn't know what was going on necessarily, and I was on medication that I don't think I should have been on because I'm pretty sure like 100.9% I was misdiagnosed with bipolar instead of just ADHD. Because guess what? That place doesn't diagnose people for ADHD, so they'll help treat it with non-stimulants, but they won't test for it. So I was like, okay, so now after
Oh,
doing a yeah, now after doing a DNA test, ADHD is in my genes, mood swings are not. So I was like, does bipolar and ADHD like can they mask as each other? They do. So um, now that I know that, it's easier to kind of step into myself because I was losing a part of myself with the medication and I didn't even know it. And so I was trying to find those parts of me that were broken and still wounded and stuff, but they were getting further away the more I was taking the medication. So I was suddenly not able to really feel as much and everything. And so while I was at Nehemiah, this scared the shit out of me. And so my anxiety came back like tenfold. And that's what I used to do was I was on Xanax for years prescribed, and then whenever I stopped that, I picked up drinking all the way until I didn't anymore. And so afterwards, I didn't know what to do, and so I was having a lot of food allergies and stuff, and that was the thing. So I took some Benadryl, and then one day I took two, was it two or three? And I realized that my anxiety also went away. And so my allergies were taken care of, and my anxiety was taken care of. So I was like, this is good. Little did I know that was not good. you know, I was hurting. I was hurting real bad, and no one like really saw it. And if they did, no one asked about it. And that kind of just made me go like, okay, well, I'm doing good. Like no one notices anything, so I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing the right thing. And then, like I didn't reach out to let people know I was hurting that much until um, someone caught wind of a relapse from me, which wasn't true. There was one time where I had to do a piss test, but I couldn't pee. You know why? Because my insides were inflamed from allergies. So I was like, so what happened was I actually got expelled from one of the Oxford houses for a little bit. I had to go to the ER to get a CAT scan and prove why I can't pee. And so while I was there, I was able to pee like 4 hours later after the CAT scan. And the drug test came back and they were like, no, you're good. So I brought it back to the house and I was like, here's my CAT scan results and here's this and everything. So some people thought that that was a full blown relapse of why I couldn't pee, right? So a little bit later on, someone caught wind of this whole situation and they thought that they could relapse and stay in the house, and that wasn't the case. And they ended up, well, finishing the job, I should say, for themselves because they had tried this a couple of times, and our housemates at the time weren't very tactful, if that's the right word. And so he had a bad relapse and came back. He was going to get kicked out. I tried to follow him and everything, and I lost him. It was raining, and so I'm also still new to the DFW area. I didn't know where all the hotels were, and so and he got a good head start on me. But anyways, long story short, called the police, everything, and then 3 days later, hear back from them. They found him. So yeah, it's I've been dealing with that kind of pain too, of like feeling like someone's life is on my hands, but I know it's not only me. It goes back
Yeah,
to everyone in that whole situation, and from the very get go, from every like everyone, and it kind of sucks. But at the same time, I can't sit there and push blame where it's not. So that's why I'm kind of owning it now, and people can sit there and they can come at me if they want, but I mean, it is what happened, and if they want to say that the story is different, then they can say it, but they need to come to talk to me. But
yeah.
that was the pain that just it almost could have killed me too. And so that pain, you're experiencing different types of pain because everyone's life is different, but it's also similar because pain is pain,
Mhm.
right?
Pain
So
is pain.
how do you not compare your pain to other people's pain? Because, I mean, a lot of us like to go, well, I'm hurting, and it's so personal that it's very much a no one will understand this because addiction is a
Yeah.
pain, right? And in addiction, we're like, damn, like, no one is as bad as I am. No one hurts as bad as me. So, how do you not do that with your pain anymore?
Well, I try not to judge pain. Like, I just try to be there for people,
Mm hmm.
because I was giving one of my coworkers kind of like the runaround of like, not the runaround, but like a quick version of my life story. And she was just like jaw to the floor. She's like, I don't think you realize how much like misery you've been through. I was like,
Mm,
I do and I don't. I was like, at this point, my pain gauge, like, it's gotta be like a bleeding, like, artery, like, intestines hanging out for me to actually feel like it's a pain because, like, I'm
mm,
just so used to it at this
mm,
point. But not everybody is, you
yeah.
know? And
Mm,
so when people say that their relationship problems, like, this one coworker, she was like, "My boyfriend doesn't text me all day, and he doesn't like to talk," and she's just like crying, and like it just hurts her so bad on the inside, you know. And I'm
mm,
like, mine annoys me. Like I hate when he asks me how my day is. Like, I don't, you know. But it's she's feeling the same pain that I was feeling when I was angry at somebody for HIV, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just try to be there for her in that way because mine's not greater than hers. Hers isn't lesser than mine. Like it's just she's in pain. I was in pain. And the important thing is that she was like sharing it, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
She was sharing where she was at and without, and that's what I love about me is that people can like come to me and like give me those situations and I'm just like, you poor child. You poor child.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of doing the whole you're healing by helping others see the way too. Is that it?
COA, yes, and that has been the best part. I did some volunteer work
Ooh.
at this place that does help
Mm.
people who are diagnosed with HIV. And let me tell you, when they would walk in there, I could tell that they were a first timer because of the way that they sit and they look. And it made me realize that like this might be a place where I can step in and like give some guidance or just a friend to hang out with, someone to like when you're feeling down about it call because I the part that I find trouble with about addiction or just anything with this stigma,
Mm.
HIV, addiction and mental health is that we're looked at as like, well, this is who they are. They do this
Mm.
over and over. They're not going to really do it this time. Oh, well, he just passed away cuz he was an addict. You know, like
Mm.
it took a while for me to heal even from Nehemiah from the situation that happened there because I put so much blame on them because like we brought it up, we said
Mm.
something. I wasn't alone with this. There was other people, staff members who were bringing it up, saying this person's not on a good
Mm.
like there's signs here, you know.
Yeah.
And then
Mm.
whenever it happened and he was no longer with us, I put so much blame on there on everybody because I was like we did everything that we could, but it the good thing that I can say today is that Nehemiah has learned.
Mm.
Yes, in this aspect, people were going to do what he was going to do regardless.
Mm. Yeah.
And it just was his time. But Nehemiah has learned it has changed so much. They are super active, not only with the guys, but with the families. Like, it
Mm.
is so beautiful. There was so many, like, every time I go, I hear some of the most badass things. Like, there was this one time I heard a wife say, here I am with my husband again,
Mm.
but here I am going to stand as his wife
Mm.
any as many times as I need to for him to get himself. I mean, it was just so powerful to hear that, you know.
Yeah.
But they took a bad situation and they learned from it where they were at fault, you know, and where
Mm.
they can change their way. And that to me was like the most healing part was to see them take it as serious as like they could
Mm.
after and the aftermath, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I mean, in Nehemiah and Oxford, both of them, in both situations, both people lost a life, you know, and it's really sad. And there is nothing we could have done about it, you know, because whether they want to take it by substance or take it by a blade, take it by anything, if they want to do that, that is their decision, 100%. And so they are able to sit there and say, well, they were outside of our protection. So what they were going to do is what they were going to do. But whenever it's like, hey, they have a history of this, they have a history of doing not the best thing in stressful moments, like, why are you going to sit there and thrust so much stress onto them all out of nowhere, you know? Because while it is something that I'm really glad that Nehemiah has changed for the better, because I have been up there a few times, but not for the Tuesday night thing, which I need to try to, but now I've got 12 weeks of podcast class to do, so I'm kind of a little screwed there. But I don't think Oxford really has shed light on that whole situation, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. And it's just one of those things that it really, really sucks, and everyone uh, has something to learn from. And I'm glad that Nehemiah has learned so much from theirs because Nehemiah means a whole lot to me. You know, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for Nehemiah. So I owe Nehemiah a ton, and I don't care what Colonel Lewis says, but I'm going to give credit where credit's due. You know, like the people there make Nehemiah what it is. So,
One thing
Whenever,
that
go
oh
ahead.
go.
Nope.
I guess one thing that keeps me almost like sharing the guilt or like being able to feel the guilt is like still being around Chris's parents because
Mm,
even to this last visit last weekend, they still, when we talk about it, they still blame themselves. They still were like, "Where did we just want to know where we went wrong to where he chose addiction?" And even
mm-hmm,
Mark tried. Mark works for a detox center,
mm-hmm,
so he deals with a lot of family members calling about their people, or so he
mm,
know how to talk to them and be like, there was nothing that like you could do, and they're like, you did your best part. It was just the drug that took him and his
mm-hmm.
choices, like, and but it's still like as a parent, I don't know. Maybe I would feel the same way too. It's like, where did I go wrong? What could I have done more?
Mm-hmm.
But when you see that front line and like you have those conversations, it's not just theory, like, and
Mm-hmm.
these people, you don't let things like that slide,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like if somebody, like there was times where I was working night shift at a
Mm-hmm.
dog place, and I saw somebody that I knew from some rooms, and he was like, I was like, hey, like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm probably about to go use. I was like, fuck,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. I knew in myself I couldn't do it. No, I wasn't going to stop him. No, I didn't stop him, but
Mm-hmm.
I gave my time and effort that I would have given anybody.
Yeah.
I listened to him, and like we went out, and he's actually staying living in Oxford. He
Ah.
confessed to Oxford, and he moved into my Oxford house. Like there was he made some good steps. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
but ultimately, I don't know when you hear those conversations from the family afterwards. Maybe that's why it's so easy for people to move on. I find it hard to move on,
Mm-hmm.
but when you deal with the family afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard to forget the pain and try to not do something the next time these situations, come around.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, too, like you'd mentioned guilt. And I carry guilt about my whole situation because I could have said something. But the thing is that, like, it honestly all started in Nehemiah because that's just where it started, for me. And then, but the thing is that it could have stopped at Nehemiah. But again, no one
Yeah.
was really privy to it. No one, if anyone had any inklings or suspicions, no one stopped it. And maybe that could have been the first sign. If there was suspicions, they could have stopped me, and that may have stopped uh, Trevor from doing his thing, and then that would have stopped the next person from doing their thing. So, I mean, at some point, I do sit there and I carry a lot of guilt on it, but then part of me is like, how much of that is ego that's trying to carry guilt, And a lot of it is like, yes, I do have to take accountability for it, and I will, and I shall. And what was that?
Did
That
you
was
hear that?
yeah, what was that?
I turned the sound down, so I don't know why, but it was. I just got a text message.
It sounded like someone had like a. It sounded like this. It sounded like.
um,
But no, like that's really the thing is that like how much of my ego is trying to carry guilt and what purpose does that serve? And yes, I can take accountability for it and I will. It sucks. I don't want to have that conversation with certain people, but like, hey, it is what it is. And if anyone's going to learn anything from it, I'm not the only one that can learn. So why not have it? But it is difficult to say reopen wounds, for some people. And sometimes just the sheer mention of it is something that will make someone go like, ooh, like that, just pulling the stitches out and everything, And it's like, even just, it's like, but, and then it goes, well, do you want to open it? And yeah, if you want to clean out some of the infection, right? Because we just kind of hold on to it. So,
no, I love that you said that because like being in the relationship that I am now, like
mhm.
of course we're engaged,
Congratulations.
but there was a lot of times like okay, so like my Christmas gift to him was an idea that I had years ago with somebody else, and
Mhm.
I felt a little uneasy at first, but I was like, you know what? That was me cleaning out those old wounds. That was me
Mm.
saying I still had some cancer in there and I needed to like unstitch it, bring it out, and give it to somebody else who had the emotional intelligence to help me heal
Mm-hmm.
while we're both doing this together. And
Yeah.
it was so cool that like now whenever I see or feel old wounds coming back out, I'm like, oh, then there's still something there, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Even dealing with Beast Boys, there was a lot of like memories and thoughts that would come to me whenever we were first dating,
Mm-hmm.
and me and Marky when we were first dating,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, shouldn't I be? Why am I thinking of this? And I talked to Kelly and my sponsor about this, and they're like, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're just cleaning out old wounds, like you're feeling that pain again
Uh-huh.
because you're wanting to let it out. And I
Yep.
would sit there and I would like write to him, and I'd be like, you're really fucking big. You're a piece of work. Your dog was cool, but that's about it. And it was just kind of nice to like revisit it, let it
Uh-huh.
go.
Yeah.
Music was the worst, especially when you love Taylor Swift. Music was the worst. Like every
Uh-huh.
song dealt about an ex, and
Yep.
so now it's just so nice to listen to music and like just vibe with it and just
Mm-hmm.
it's background noise.
Yeah.
God,
And
I did so much work for it to be background noise.
oh, I haven't heard the name Beast Boy in a while, and Zuko was the dog, right?
Yeah, Zuko.
How do I remember the dog's name, but I'm terrible with people's names? What the
Because the
but
dog was cool.
the dog was cool, yeah. But you said something that really makes me think on that whole thing because like music especially is such a powerful um just it's a powerful tool, it's a powerful weapon, it's a powerful energizer, depressor, it depends on the music you're listening to and the mood. Like you can change a lot with music. But whenever you have those old memories come back, say with music, or in my most recent experiences with just experience in general, like, hey, I haven't done this activity in a long time, and last time I did it, it was with so and so, trigger point right there. Let's stop. Ouch. It's like I find that those are actually moments where I'm being invited in by myself to replace that experience memory. Like am able to sit there and say, I am having nostalgia about it and it kind of hurts. So why not say, let's take that same feeling and replace it with the experience and memory that I'm creating right now. So whenever I have that again, I'll think back to this moment, hopefully more so instead. And it's not a one and done, but it is definitely like as I revisit it again and or have that same feeling, I can definitely feel that that's kind of being like washed, not pushed
Yeah,
away, but washed. Like the trauma, the like is getting just wrung out of a cloth. Does that make sense?
yeah. One of the best clues about healing for me that I knew
Mm-hmm.
like I had to heal, like I feel like me and my higher power, like we be talking in some weird ways. Well, I had a coffee cup
Uh-huh.
and I would make coffee and then I would just rinse it out, flip it over, and that was my routine.
Yeah.
Was just make coffee in it, drink it, rinse it out, put it upside down in my pantry.
Uh-huh.
Well, one day I went to go put in coffee, and I guess it was just the way that it was sitting that I saw a residue ring, and I was like, "Oh, that is gross." But instantly, the only thing that came to mind was, "Don't worry about whether your cup is half full or half empty. Worry about if your
Mm.
cup is clean."
Ooh.
Because you can, it don't matter the water that's in there. If that cup is dirty, you can have a half full, half empty, dirty water in your cup. You
Oh.
know, I know, and
Oh.
I loved it, loved it, loved it. But instantly, I realized, oh, I have to heal before I move on to my next era of life
Uh-huh.
because else I'm going to be carrying this dirty cup that I
Mm-hmm.
think is clean, and I'm going to be drinking from it.
Damn. Okay, can I add on to that real quick?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
for the like last ever since this podcast really has come about, I've been trying to add so much more onto my plate and everything. And while trying to add onto my plate, I'm trying to pour out from a cup. So I'm sitting there trying to say, I need more liquid to pour, and I've been asking the wrong question. I've been needing a bigger cup to pour from, you know, And that's the thing is that like, how do I do that? And it starts by taking care of the cup that I have and cleaning it to make sure that the next one is even better.
Yeah.
Damn.
One thing Colonel used to say a lot is what you do with the little, you'll do with a lot. And
Uh-huh.
so like even like bro, there was oh my god, there was a restaurant I used to work for, and what I make today, I would make probably in 2 months there. What I make in like
Mm.
one pay period, I would make in 2 months over there. But
Oh
we
man.
survived and we thrived, and like I don't even know how we did it. Like we look, me and Mark talk back, and we're like, how the hell did we left off of $150 a week? Fuck. But we like lived to the fullest. Like, but what we did with that little bit of life, we're
Mm-hmm.
doing with like everything that we have now. We're still smart financially. Being
Mm-hmm.
financially smart is like being financially free.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah, I know. That is one of the weirdest things. Like, whenever I'm more fiscally responsible, I find myself kind of like, where the fuck is this money coming from? And it's like, oh, because I'm not spending it. That's why. And it's weird actually, like having a little bit and being able to say, like, if I like miss a couple of days from work, it's not going to absolutely kill. Like, it'll definitely hurt and it's noticeable, but it's not like, oh, everything's in sudden jeopardy. But back in the day, it was definitely like if I miss an hour of work, I'm screwed. So,
Oh,
yeah. And I mean, and just we've both been in different relationships since this podcast started, So it's interesting that we're
yes.
able to sit there and actually like we can take the earlier relationships and we can dissect them and inspect them and reflect on them and we can actually throw them back at each other because you and I know each other really well and I mean we're sitting here having a conversation about really deep shit on a public platform that is like, hey, this is scary, It is all honestly a little scary every time I do it because you never know what we're going to talk about. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? It's like how do you prepare yourself for the things you don't know that are going to come up for something that you're planning? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So one way that Marky has taught me to look at life is
Uh-huh.
like whether you're teaching or you're learning, and I guess it's
Ooh.
so unfair to
Yeah.
even think that life will be fair at any point. But I think the twist of it is that you never know which one you're doing, but you're
Mm-hmm.
either teaching or you're learning from a
Mm-hmm.
situation. Because I still think back to Beast Boy, and I'm like, we've had conversations about it, and I'm telling him like, I just don't know what I could learn because I tried to do everything right, in the
Mm-hmm.
best way, and he's like, maybe you were just teaching him
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
pain would teach you, and I know we both shared an equal amount of pain because
Mm-hmm.
he tried to be involved even months afterwards, but I was still angry, you
Yeah.
know,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know, like maybe I'm hoping that maybe I taught something in the end, some way, form, or fashion. It might not be. I know I didn't learn lessons till like
Mm-hmm.
today.
And but that's the thing too is that like we can't put a timestamp or an expectation on a lesson or anything like that, right? Because expectations lead me into like all sorts of trouble all the time, and whenever people or situations don't pan out either up to expectations or way outside of the left field or whatever, that can send me in such like an uncontrolled like emotional state that it can really screw me up. So I have to learn how to take away those expectations. But if I'm sitting there going, there's a lesson here, I have to learn it, I have to learn it, what is it? Then I'm going to sit there and run myself into like a wall constantly, right? And
Yeah,
I feel that it's okay to take that time, to take that step back, to try to get a look at the whole picture again and say, oh, wait, the fence is over there. Like the gate's over that way. I was trying to go where the forest is at, and bad stuff's that way. No wonder I can't go through. Um, and so I don't think that, and I love the whole like you're either teaching or you're learning. And I think a lot of the times we're doing both, but we may not be doing the other one in the moment. I think it is kind of like how you reflect on it. And if you're even willing to learn, because that's a huge thing too, is that a lot of people like to say, well, I know this, I have experience, and so my experience trumps your experience, so you can't tell me what to do. And
Yeah.
I like to tell myself that a lot, you know, like I like to tell myself that a lot. And it's taken some real work to be able to sit there and tell younger me, like, hey, it's okay. Like, I'm here for you now. Like, I know I didn't speak up for you all those years ago. I know that we kind of shrunk it back. We had pieces missing that we were so focused on the smaller ones. We weren't looking for the bigger ones and stuff. But like, we've got most of the pieces back. We're making our own mosaic now. We don't have to sit there in the lines. It's okay to be a little different. It's okay. Like, finding that self worth and self compassion has been able to give me a bridge into that healing factor, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, do you deal with like your inner child and stuff like that sometimes?
Yes. And that's what I captioned my life story, because I shared my life story the other day at a
Mm.
meeting,
Oh, okay.
and I captioned it "the strongest kid who ever lived," because
Mm.
I, as a kid, was full of fear, full of like uncertainty, and like relying on my parents who at the time weren't able to give me what I needed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that even as a young adult, two of my adult life, I was still that kid who raised himself in
Mm-hmm.
survivor mode, living in fear aimlessly.
Mm.
So I had to like reflect and like forgive myself for the decisions that I made as an adult, because like I was just that kid that was just trying to um, make it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But whenever this whole HIV journey started, and I had to let people in, I took other people's lead. There were
Mm.
times I wasn't, I don't even know how I made it by, but I had people who were there for me, who were checking on me, who were like making these calls for me, who were giving me right, the things that I could not emotionally force myself to do anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
was, it was just being done for me, and almost like a parent would,
Yeah.
and so I felt some healing in that little kid. But that's why I
Mm.
captioned it as the strongest kid who ever lived, as in
Mm.
he has now grown from
Mm.
where he was once at, and I
Yeah.
have a whole support system to thank for that,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't be here had I not gone through that situation.
Yeah.
you know that
Mm-hmm.
situation opened up that small window, that that window of like, you're gonna either go down this good road or you're just gonna, you know I had
Yeah.
that small window, and I was like, I have I want to, not I have to, I that's another thing, is I changed my literature.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to go this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And first of all, congrats on being able to heal and being able to present your story at those meetings because I know how difficult those are. But I do love how you're saying that lived is in past tense ish because it is like a photograph, right? It's not necessarily the living aspect. It's not an entity anymore necessarily. The spirit is kind of there, but it's matured and into who you are now. I really like that, and I think that that's kind of how it feels for me too. Now that I have to think on it, you know, because like that same inner child voice isn't necessarily still there. Like there's parts of it that still kind of hurt, but it's just part of the healing process, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's kind of like growing pains. Like it's going to happen. So you just kind of got to let it happen. But if you try to stunt the growth, then it's just going to suck. Um, and what was that last bit that you were saying? I was about to go off on it. Bup, 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 bup. Eh, can you help me out? Uh,
Which part? The strongest kid who ever
or
lived. Like, he
lived.
was raised. I
Uh
had
huh.
the support system.
Oh,
Uh,
I think it was because you're sharing it. I don't, I don't know, but damn, I wish that train didn't just jump down that rabbit hole. Um, and no, but that's the thing too is that like, your journey has just been all over the place in all the best regards, you know, and it is continuing. You haven't said, all right, this is it, I've made it. And I think that that's really important to do, because I know at one point I was like, all right, I've got like X amount of recovery. I have made it. I'm good. And I was fucking not, and the more healing I do, the more that I see that there is to be healed. But I also have to be careful about not trying to perfect my healing. I
Yeah.
like, what
Because
is that?
that becomes an addiction to be like,
Uh-huh.
what else do I have lingering? And then
Mm-hmm.
you just start kind of looking for things, and they're not
Uh-huh.
really like, yeah.
You start creating problems that aren't actually there. And that was one of the things too,
Um,
is that like, if you're always looking for those parts of you to heal, you're also in some way, shape, and form admitting that you are still wrong, because there's something I can fix. There's something I can fix. And it's not so much fixing, it's more like there's something that I can correct. There's something that I can restore balance to at some point, because a lot of the times whenever my actions are out of line with my morals, it's because I'm either acting out of fear, anxiety, or just a sense of or not a sense of, but from a place of an experience, so
yeah,
whenever I
inexperience. I love that.
yeah, so whenever like I look at all my moral actions that I've done that I'm not proud of, it's because I was acting out of fear, I was acting out of insecurities, I was acting out of one thing or another, but it was also inexperience. So it takes a lot of time for that experience to catch up and really just be like, "Hey, this is a lesson, by the way. Bye."
You've been here before.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, and then it's like, damn, I'm in a pattern. And once I recognize I'm in a pattern, it's easier to say, oh, I can see where this is going to go, possibly. What can I do to change the end result this time? And that's kind of how, not necessarily, I'd say, relationships go, but I think that that's how we kind of course correct ourselves whenever we can say, this is something, because our partners are supposed to be mirrors to ourselves, subconsciously we
yeah,
choose the people that are going to trigger us. We choose the people that are going to bring out the worst in us, but they also at the same time bring out the absolute best in us, even whenever we don't want it. So it's really interesting that we're able to find our mirrors and be on this healing journey with them at the same time. And it's just like, dude, how does this even work? And that's the great thing, we can't plan this.
yeah. It's so weird, because like Marky is definitely like I'm more of like the planning and like in case this type that like I've been through so much that I'm like I just try to like avoid certain roads, and
Uh-huh.
he's more of the like, but everything's gonna be fine kind of thing, and I'm like, you don't know that. He's like, actually I do, like life has been fine. And he balance, like we balance each other out because I
Mm-hmm.
do the planning and the worrying, and he does the living and the believing and the faith, and
Mm-hmm.
together we're just combined with that like cautious but still go,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
ready to defend but still just living. Like that's one thing that like we talked about, like our sobriety is we
Mm-hmm.
don't run away from relapse. We don't
Mm.
say, oh, if I don't go to meeting, and this isn't to say that don't go to meetings. It's just
Mm-hmm.
to say that like I realized that I white knuckled it for so long without
Mm-hmm.
even thinking I was white knuckling until I realized that there was instead of running away from relapse, we're walking towards a life worth living, you
Mm.
know? And
Yeah.
what is a life worth living? We don't know. We just
Mm-hmm.
get to walk to that.
Yeah.
We get to do all these little like beautiful things. Like we entered that competition for America's favorite couple and we got
Yeah.
chosen. We like entered the cats into a calendar and they got chosen. We decided to, adopt cats. We decided to just build what we wanted out of like our home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like when you're a kid and you're like singing in the mirror and you're living before all life happened.
Yeah.
What we wanted then, we decided that's what we want now, and we're
Mm.
gonna get it.
Yeah.
And so like those little, like we literally had a vision board that said we want these little things here. Like these are
Mm-hmm.
little goals. and they just slowly we started erasing one, two, three, and
Mm-hmm.
it feels so good to just live towards something than to say if I don't do this, I'm gonna relapse. I don't
Mm-hmm.
use that type of like no.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes relapsing was like the solution to the problems, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's ways to address the problems. And sometimes the problems, like there's been times where I was angry at my sponsor. And I was scared to tell my sponsor because I want to be like, how can I talk bad about your sponsor? But
Yeah.
there were so many reasons why I love my sponsor. And one of them is because my sponsor can really work with me whenever to me. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter who I'm talking about. They're always like, you got to remember some people operate in fear, some people, all this, like, and without saying bad stuff about anybody, my sponsor's always been like literally the wisest person for me. He's also a
Mm-hmm.
counselor, so it works very good. But he always tells me too, like, if I'm like crossing the line and feel like I'm telling you what to do, like just tell me. And I was like, I sometimes I need direction.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and y'all balance each other out in that regard so well because uh, you definitely do a lot of research and planning. So, I can only imagine what the wedding's going to be like. That's going to be so cool. You said y'all are
we
doing it in a
wanted
year, right?
Yes, we wanted to do like, or I wanted to do a Game of Thrones or like a high school
Ooh,
theme,
not the
but
red wedding,
we,
right?
no, God,
Okay, good, good.
no. Imagine the midgets coming out in Oxford House t-shirts. Fuck.
Oh no, that would not be good.
Um, no, 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 no. But we're gonna go with like the stars because like
Mm.
we've always had ties to the stars and like the fates and stuff like that. And
Mm.
like one of my favorite cards is the star card. And
Uh
when
huh.
I first came over to his place, he has Echo and Alexa, but he has
Mm.
these lights on top of the ceilings
Uh
and
huh.
he calls them the stars. So it's
Mm.
Echo, turn on the stars. And
Oh.
when he first said that, I was like, okay. But
Oh
there are
yeah.
so many like little connections that like
Uh
have
huh.
just happened like that. And it just kind of feels more true to state
Mm-hmm.
or to stick with that.
Oh yeah. For sure. You're being authentic, right? Inside and out. I love that. And y'all aren't wearing a mask while y'all are at home and everything. So y'all are just being authentic. And that's what Jordy and I do. And it works. Like we definitely have our bumps in the road. Don't get me wrong. Everyone does. And if you say you don't, you're lying. But that's
You're
the thing
wearing a
is that,
mask.
yeah, exactly. You're wearing a mask. You're trying to put on a safe face for the public. And it's like, why do you care what they necessarily care about, right? It's a relationship. Y'all need to worry about how y'all handle each other's stuff. And so we've had our moments where it's like, I am definitely learning here. I'm having to learn and I'm uncomfortable. But that's the thing is that I've had to reflect on those experiences. Like if I feel uncomfortable, it means that I'm stretching. It means that I am getting ready for expanding my cup so that I can hold more, so that I can do
Yeah.
more for everyone. And it's just one of those things that she gives me the space and the time and the patience and everything to be able to be myself. And that is one of the biggest things that is like having that liberation, being able to do all of that has facilitated healing so much more because I'm not having to perform like at Nehemiah
Yeah.
or Oxford, like if you didn't live up to a certain standard or if you weren't a certain person in that perspective, you're not in good recovery. You're going to relapse. You're going to backtrack. You're going to do all this kind of stuff. But whenever you're in an environment like you and I, where we're around loving people that will accept us, whoever and however we are, and willing to learn and grow, then I think that's where real healing comes from. And that's communication and everything.
Yeah. And like staying, there's some uncomfortable conversations I've had with a lot of my support system, and there's been
Mm-hmm.
falling outs with, I mean, me, like, we didn't speak for like a minute because, like,
Yeah.
I got really weird.
Yeah.
And, it was so funny because when I looked at our last text messages, like, I reread yours that you had sent to me, and I was like, why did I never respond to that? But then it was, I mean, obviously, I wasn't emotionally intelligent enough to respond
Mm,
to a text message like that at the time,
yeah, and
because
I wouldn't say that you weren't emotionally intelligent enough. I just think that you may have not had the capacity to, maybe not capacity, but you were there was a blockage of some sort, but you were working on it and I could tell, and that's why I didn't want to push any further, you know.
it
So,
was it like those times I was really that's where I was trying to prove to everybody that I was okay. My
mm,
job isn't that bad when it
mhm.
was it was literally killing me. And the best thing that I could do to cope with it was find someone to hook up with because I was like it's either
Mm.
that or drugs.
Yeah.
So it was, one or the other. And
Mhm.
um I thought I found I mean I found some there was the person I knew he was using, but he
Mhm.
wasn't using in front of me. So it was one of those
Mm.
like things, but it almost became like a game to me. Like no one at
Ooh.
work knew about him. I didn't tell anybody at the house. Then
Mhm.
this was after Nate. And so
Oh.
like it
Okay.
was just like a secret kind of like bad boy vibe kind of thing. And it was like it worked
Uh-huh.
until like he quit messaging and I thought, okay, that's just the name of the game. That's
Mm.
how these things go. But then I got really sick
Oh.
and I got sent home from work and I never got better. I mean, I just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Mhm.
And that's when I ended up going to the hospital. And I asked them, I was like, can y'all do an
Oh
HIV
man.
test? And I was so angry. Keegan, you don't understand the anger. I was
Mm.
so angry
Yeah.
at myself, at him, at everybody, at my job. I mean, I was literally a wounded animal just lashing at anybody.
Mhm.
And I didn't know at this point that when you said that you were operating out of like inexperience, that I was not experienced with this type of anger, this
Yeah.
type of hurt at the same time, you
Yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
And so that's Kelly was like the saving grace right there because without her sending that message, because I just shared with her, hey, this is the news I just got. I don't know what to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
When that was her response, that I mean, and it didn't even seem like a clinical response. It wasn't like, of course she knows what to do. Of course she knows how to save the day. But it
Mhm.
felt so compassionate. It felt understood. It felt like, okay, right now we just got to worry about you getting better, and then let's
Mhm.
talk about how like you're feeling tonight. But
Mhm.
she was like, she went into like mom mode, friend mode, counselor mode, like all like super, like she was a superhero in that time, and I hope that I can show her of how grateful I am. And I think living the life that I am shows her how truly grateful I am for all her help. Because I
Mhm.
mean, she's met Mark. We've like not hung out with her, but like we've gone to Tuesday night together,
Mhm.
and she's really loves to see where I'm at. It felt so bad when I told her like maybe we should only see each other once a month because I keep coming to you with like everything's good and like
Fine.
chilling.
Uh-huh. Gotta let everything
And
kind of build
so
up.
yeah, and I felt uneasy. I was like, 2 weeks is just like a
Mhm.
lot for me now. So can we see each other once a month? But it felt
Uh-huh.
good too to graduate to that, to be like,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah, because now you have this more experience behind you. You have a better foundation. You've got a better support system. You've got all that extra stuff. But I think it's really good that you have that main pillar still there, right? Because it's kind of like your keystone, kind of like the thing that holds the arch open,
yeah,
that center point. Uh, and that's kind of like your point of reference. So if you ever have questions or you're dealing with an experience, you know who to go to. And that's something too is that like she's told me like, hey, uh, she has her own like practice a little bit like on a certain day of the
yeah,
week. So I'm like, I would like to go to that. That would be kind of cool. That would be awesome. But at the same time, like she is one of the people that did kind of get caught up in the whole Nehemiah Oxford situation because me telling her stuff right there. And so part of me is like, if I talk to her about certain things, like I don't. And it's funny, like for as much as she knows about me and stuff, there's still like parts that she probably never will. And it's definitely like because I want to like keep it like to myself. But if
Yeah,
I don't let those parts out, then there's definitely no healing at the same time. But it's funny because the parts that I'm like, no, I don't want anyone to see is just like I've healed those parts. It's just like, yeah, that's definitely a part of my past that I'm not proud of. So it's like,
yeah.
oh, it's like, like I'll talk about it, but yeah, but I do want to see Kelly again soon. Last time I saw her was because I was working on the copier at Nehemiah. So,
She has made it very difficult to not read people. Because
mm,
like she not only does she like read me, but she tells me like the signs, and then she tells me like her studies and stuff. And so I'm always
hmm.
like, okay, that's cool. And so I'll be like just reading people and like,
But see, like you
what are
also,
you going through?
yeah, but like you also got to be careful with that too, right? Because
Because then you're
there's,
making problems where there's no, yeah.
hmm. And so like that was the thing. Whenever I first, have you ever seen the show Lie to Me?
Mm-mm.
So it's really cool because it deals with they his name is Dr. Light, and he went through the world and like studied facial expressions. So facial expressions are universal, right? So
Yeah,
everyone knows I'm mad. I'm happy. And but he went through and he defined micro expressions, the ones where you're like your face ticks a little bit before you realize that it happened and stuff. So he goes around and is like an interrogator of sorts, and so like works with the police, catching. He's the human lie detector essentially. It's a really cool show, over exaggerated, of course, for TV, but whenever I was learning about that stuff, it was like, oh, like I'm going to sit there and observe everyone and everything. And so there's definitely moments where, like, uh, say for instance, someone, like if a girl's playing with their hair, for instance, right? Like some people are like, oh, she's flirty, or it could be she's anxious, and that's just her way of soothing herself, you know? So
yeah.
that is two totally different signs that, for instance, whenever my ex-wife would do that, it was like I don't know which one it is, and being insecure and everything, it's like, oh, she's definitely flirty, and so I have to get defensive because my ego and everything is now in attack, right? So it took a lot to get to that point to where it's still like I have to, and that was another thing that I wanted to talk about too, is like trust, because we also trust the person that we're with now at a level that we've never experienced before. And I think I know why, because I learned what trust really is, and I was always putting trust in a bucket and handing it to people and saying don't drop it, right? But
Yeah.
that's not how it works. So, um, do you say that you trust better now?
I say that I trust smarter. You know,
Ooh, uh-huh.
I still be giving that bucket up, be like, here you go, hold this and please don't drop it. But I do it to people that like I have seen in action, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I guess I'm learning to study people
Mm-hmm.
more than just like two times, you know, and
Yeah.
through weathered seasons. Because like a lot of the people that I have like you and
Mm-hmm.
my group of friends from the dog place,
Mm-hmm.
we had a huge falling out. And then like when
Mm.
I got okay, so when I got HIV,
Mm-hmm.
who did I have to turn to? I had already like screw you, screw you, screw you, screw you.
Mm-hmm.
I had like I didn't know who to turn to.
Yeah.
They were the ones who saw it. They're like, "What's like going on?" And I finally had to tell them, and they were like, I stayed at one of their houses, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But going through those situations, like I know I can still trust them. I know that they
Yeah.
would be the one. I would never ask them to do something that I knew that they weren't capable of doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like now, like I don't. I trust smarter. I
Mm-hmm.
still fully blown trust people, but like it's not one of those things like where it's earned or not. It's just like I don't know how to say it smarter other than like smarter, but like not
Mm-hmm.
as easy anymore. I still full like will fully trust, but like it's limited to the people.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
access, I mean, you'll get your full access pass, but like it's just limited to the people.
Mm-hmm. Give me just a second. Jordy just got home.
Okay.
You're, huh? Oh, okay. Hang on. Give me just a second. You want to say hi, Simba? Sure. Yeah. All right, Simba. Here's Jordy.
I've been told the what that. Ow! I don't like these things.
They're big.
Ow!
Hi, Simba.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Bruh, it's
Oh,
like
he didn't
seven
tell
o'clock
you.
at night.
I'm in the UK. He didn't tell
Oh
you I'm in
damn.
the UK.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I was like, I don't know. Maybe. Oh,
He's not. He just likes to play with us.
I see why you're friends now.
Yeah. We were roommates.
He ate all my ice cream.
Say what?
You ate all my ice cream.
Are you? Did you tell her about how you ate all my ice cream and my gummy worms?
He blamed you.
Well, no, because I bought them, so therefore they taste better.
It's okay. He eats my ice cream too.
Yeah, okay. Hey, I paid it
See,
forward.
Okay. Well, I just got
uh,
off work, so nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Bye.
Um,
Because. So everyone, that was Jordy Reed, my wife.
yay!
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because we're live.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. I'm proud. You should.
Hold this bucket of water.
We were just talking about trust
Oh yeah. Okay.
and trust buckets.
I'm going back to.
Okay. But actually, real quick, Simba, we are over an hour. Do we want to keep talking and just split this episode up into smaller chunks? Do you got something you need to do, or do we just want to try to plan doing this like once every other week or so? What do you want?
Dude, I'm off for 3 days a week now because like
Ooh.
I want to do more living than
Uh huh.
working.
Oh yeah.
So I am off Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays. If we
Sundays,
can
Mondays.
make any of those days work,
We might be able to make Wednesdays or Sundays work. Sundays, might be the easier time, but we'll kind of have
perfect.
to see how my schedule is because I mean I've got bookings all the way up until December, dude. Like, yeah, like almost 4 a week. So, like I've got 26, 27 messages kind of sitting over at Pod Match, and I'm just like, I turned my profile visible for like 5 days, and I got 26 messages, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's half the year of recording, like just right there. I was like, that's all, like and that's the problem. I want to get every single person on, but I'm the one having to do the post production, the editing, and all that, and it's just a
Yeah.
lot. So, like, but that's the thing too, is that I don't want to get so much that I forget what it's all about, and it's all about connection with the other person on the other end of the screen, you know? And if I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
I got 5 to do today, I got 2 to do tomorrow, stuff like that, like there's no connection there. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't actually get to sit there and get to know my guests. And sometimes I feel like they don't want that because they're busy people. I understand that. And they're here to deliver a message of mental health, wellness, and hope. And sometimes they're super duper busy and they are double booked or something. That's totally fine. But it's like, I don't want my guests to feel like I'm like, all right, we're done. Click, bye.
Yeah. Next
You
in
know?
line.
Yeah. Number 4, you know? Yeah, I don't want to do that. And so it's like, fuck. But like I love our conversations because we can go down so many different rabbit holes and everything, and we know we have our own personal experience together, and we know each other's personal background, so we can talk about so much more in depth kind of stuff. We know how each other thinks, and it's just one of those things like we mean, okay, don't come over here now. But uh no, it's just one of those things that like it's really good to have like this kind of connection with you, especially because whenever so that like that's the whole thing. Like whenever the podcast started, I still remember like I still remember handing you the microphone, like, all right, Simba, you're up. Give us your introduction. And you were like, no, I'm good. And I was
Here,
like, what?
Brian.
And I was like, okay. And so then you borrowed the Gaia, the Dreams of Gaia tarot deck, and you're like, dude, they called me out. And then like 2 days later, you were back in Nehemiah, and I was like, what the hell happened? But
Oh my god.
yeah, and like that's another thing too is that like since you were at the beginning, like we actually had, I still have, dude, I still have the episode of whenever you were in Nehemiah and they let me come in and record with you. I still have that episode. Like we should post it and
Yeah.
record it and everything. Um, but like you can tell that the podcast and show has grown a whole bunch, and I love that the like one of the original people is still coming through. Like
Yeah.
I haven't heard from Bryant in forever, and then a lot of people from Oxford haven't heard from them. Don't blame them. I kind of want to reach out and like quell some of those bridges, but then it's kind of like, is that my fire to put out? You know, like, but I mean, that's the thing. I've aired out my laundry, so if anyone hears it and wants to talk about it, they can come to me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell them no. So, but and then it's like, is it my responsibility to bring it up? I know who like I can bring it up to. It's my responsibility to. But then at the same time, is that just the hero complex kicking in, right? Like, can I make someone feel better by opening a wound? And it's like, step 10 and 9 tell me no.
Oh.
um, but yeah,
Well, it
like,
seems they have been born that way. They are not at fault.
oh man, I wish I still remembered all of the little sayings and stuff, you know, because like that's kind of the thing about recovery. Like as I've grown, so has my recovery. It doesn't look the
Yeah.
same as it did 2 years ago, you know. And coming up in September, it'll be 4 years without alcohol. So, woohoo!
That's crazy.
Uh huh. Yeah, that is actually way crazier to think that we've known each other for almost like half a decade.
Oh
That's weird.
my god.
Dude, I just aged us. I'm sorry. But yeah, if you want to be on the show, like we'll figure out a time on Sundays to do live streams and stuff. And
Yeah.
do recordings and all that. So, dude, it's just been way too good talking to you again, you know, catching up. Um, do we want to
And I
keep
got to
going?
meet Jordy.
Yeah.
Well, I do have to like go at 8,
Okay.
for sure. That's when he's getting home.
Ooh.
Not that he cares, but like there, it just
No, that's the thing, right? Like, so I actually just learned myself recently because I was focusing so much on the show, trying to get perfect or trying to learn this, trying to learn that. There are times where, yes, I have a deadline to keep. It's not mine, and so it's my accountability buddy, right? Like, it's how I make sure that I'm accountable. I'm accountable to other people because this isn't just my show necessarily, right? And so what was I saying? Um, shit. Oh man, what was I saying? It's oh oh man. Uh help. Help. Oh,
that's quite literally the funniest thing I ever see.
uh Oh man, I wish I could remember what. Oh, it'll come back. It'll come back. The accountability buddy kind of thing. I think my higher power was like, all right, we're taking that thought out there real quick. Just don't dig a hole. Like, I was about to dig a hole. Okay, so, um, but dude, like, there's been so much life that's happened in such a short amount of time. It's crazy, you know, and it makes me wonder, like, how much did I miss out on during my addiction? And it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot. And I think that's one of the scary things too, right? Is early recovery is that perceived game of catch up, right? So we're not
but
necessarily.
that's a phase one like way of
Mm-hmm.
thinking. It's like, oh, I gotta catch up on everything, or
Mm-hmm.
and then it's almost like you go to the period of like the sorrows of like everything I took away from everyone else involved, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just kind of, or for me, like then I just kind of went through the forgiveness stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started actually once I stopped reaping the consequences. I remember I told my sponsor, I've been doing good with dealing with life on life's terms. And he looked at me, he's like, Boo boo, these are consequences. This isn't life happening to you. And I was like, okay. Oh,
Oh, I do remember you telling me that in a text one time, and I was like, "Ooh, that is really good." Yeah.
it stings, but it was truth. It was like a almost like like a mom paints, like a
Mhm.
sit back down.
Yeah, a little slap on the wrist.
Yay.
Yeah. Hmm. But damn. If there was one thing that you could, um, let's say, not go back in time and change, what is something that you would go back and observe, like a specter, just to kind of get that, uh, I don't know, like experience or maybe closure or something? What is one of those things that you would actually sit there and be like, see it in a third person point of view, not from your own shoes?
Um, if I could go back as I am today and like just look at one portion of my life, it would be the last day that I talked to my dad. Not when I
Mm.
actually talked to him, but when I was like using, because like I was avoiding. It was like nearing the last day. Like we were within the last 2 days, and
Mm-hmm.
I was getting real heavy. And I just wish that I could see myself as I was using, not to like in anger, but just be
Mm.
like, this is who you were at one
Mm-hmm.
point. And
Yeah.
I'll never get to, my dad will never get to see me sober.
Mm.
But there's something that I hold on to that version of me. I don't know what it is, but that version alone, that person on that day is a
Mm-hmm.
whole completely different person than I was throughout my whole addiction. And I don't know, that's just like a different person. And there's some reason that I've always wanted to just go back and look at that person and be like, not again, not in disgust and not in shame, but just be like, wow, like you've come so far
Mm-hmm.
from using while your dad's dying to now letting people in, being vulnerable, being authentic, and living out loud,
Yeah.
you know? So I
Mm-hmm.
just almost like go back and like reflect on that person and just let them know, like, you know what? You're right where you need to be.
Mm. Yeah.
In a weird way, you're right where you need to be.
Yeah. And I'd have to say that I would do something similar, because the book says we don't wish to shut the door on the past or anything like that, and that's for sure. Like if we do, we are ignoring a lot of important information that helps us break old patterns and so on and so forth, not just for ourselves but for others. But um to be able to sit there and recognize that that is like essentially the start of your journey, the start of a new you, and being able to see that part of you, I think that that would fundamentally change a lot of people in the way that they view themselves, because whenever, to me, it'd be like looking at the shell, like the exoskeleton of a tarantula whenever they molt, it's kind of like that would be how I would feel looking at certain past versions of myself. Like oh yeah, that is a shell of a person, you know. But
Yeah.
because the spirit wasn't there anymore, um, and whenever like life actually gets brought back, it happens slowly, I think, and it's kind of like whenever it starts, it just doesn't really stop, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part. Well, it becomes overwhelming at first, and not knowing that experience again, it's kind of like becoming a new person. It really is. And that's what I try to tell people is that recovery, you're changing yourself every day. You're reinventing yourself. So
Yeah.
it's just great that I have you as a co-host and friend to do that with, because I don't know where I would be on my any journey at this point, because you've been such a pivotal part in it, you know?
Bro, we used to sit there. What was it? We were always in the kitchen grabbing some food, and then we talk about something, and we realize we're like an hour and a half later. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Oh man, those are really good. Like those were my favorite days in Oxford, you know, was that very first right after Nehemiah, having you as my roommate, and then after you moved out, that's when it went to shit. Like that's whenever it was like, "Oh no." And see, but
I
if I
was
sit there,
learning.
yeah, and but see, if I sit there and if I try to place the blame on you, oh, everything went south because Simba moved out of the room. I'm ignoring the bigger picture. I'm ignoring the parts of me that were like, oh, that was just I was able to have a connection with someone, and then met with someone that I had to do like, oh, I had to stretch myself so much for that person. Oh, dude, like my limits were tested in all sorts of patients and everything. It was not fun, but
I thought about like talking to you about like how like much I was like in turmoil in my head, but
mhm,
once I crossed the line of relapse, I was like, no one can find out because
yeah,
I was not about to put you through that whole. Well, now
mhm,
you know because it just. But then it just was even worse on my end because then like nobody could know, you know, like.
mm, yep,
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, I mean,
Beep.
God,
Oh man. And but that's the thing too, right? Is that we've learned from our experience there, and so it didn't not have its purpose. It didn't not have its place. And I think that whenever people have a bad experience with such as Nehemiah or Oxford and stuff, they like to blame the institution instead of being able to reflect back on themselves and go like, "Oh, yeah, I can definitely see where I kind of went wrong," you know. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's one of those like the burden is a shared responsibility. You know, it's not solely on one person. So I think that's important that a lot of people kind of recognize that yeah, you have a part to play in a whole lot of things, but if you're trying to do the whole play by yourself, you got a lot going on behind
yeah.
stage that needs help.
You know, my mom asked me, which I don't feel like she was trying to start something, but I think she kind of walked into this one. But she asked
Uh-huh.
me, she said, so, she's like, so if I hadn't seen you at Walmart, you wouldn't have come over to visit us, would you? And I was like, sure wouldn't
Mm.
have.
Yeah.
No, I would have had no reason to say, hey, I want to come visit you on a Sunday before I leave Paris.
Yeah.
You were not the reason why I came to Paris. I was like, I come to Paris to visit Chris's parents once a month. You
Hmm.
just were never on that list. But I was like, if you invited me, I would have come over. Obviously, I
Hmm.
did. You said, "Hey, would you like to come over?" I said, "Yeah, I would love to," and I came
Hmm.
over. But she like kind of walked into it, so I think she realized it because I remember looking at her face. She was like, "Oh, you're right."
Yep. Uh, Go ahead.
No, I forgot why I even brought that up because it was one of those things where like that's just where we were at. Like
Hmm.
I took the first step in healing. I needed like we needed to share that burden, you know?
Hmm.
And life gave us that opportunity to be like, are we really like am I really healing from this? Am I really trying to move on from it? Am I really trying to
Hmm.
be family?
Yeah.
Right when we saw each other. And then she extended the invitation, come over, you know, and we just
Hmm.
now we're rebuilding a connection, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah. And
in a
that
better way. more mature and like um
Emotionally intelligent way.
yes, with boundaries. Like
And oh man, like, did we do an episode on boundaries before? I think we did. It would be hard for us not to.
I think I'm pretty sure we did, and yes, because you we there was a saying that boundaries have doors or bridges build walls. I forgot what it went like, but like
Oh, yeah, you're right. Um,
walls are no good because boundaries teach you where the door is at, or something like
mm,
that.
yeah. I'm going to have to go back through and see if I can't find that. But like that's one of the cool things too is that we'll be able to sit here and we can reflect on some of the same topics that we've talked about before, but our experience is vastly different than what it was before. Our perspectives may be somewhat similar, somewhat still aligned and all that, but experience is makes a student of us all, you know? So we've learned, we've refined our skills, we've done a whole bunch of different things. So it's going to be really cool to sit here and be able to be like, hey, do you remember this episode and how we talked about this? I changed my mind. Or never mind, I didn't change my mind. In fact, I stand more firm in that decision, you know?
I'm a Texas.
I can't really. um, Well, let's see. We're at an hour and 26 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and cut this episode here? So that way anyone can go ahead and be like, yeah, the revival is back or reunion, whatever. And then we can let them know sometime soon that, hey, we're going to actually have a more scheduled time for doing this possibly. So that way people can look forward to it. And it'll be that one that's like everyone knows the two of us
Yeah,
again,
like
you know?
the weekend, like the Sundays is the two. You know.
Yeah. So we'll have to figure something out for sure. But for now, I guess we can leave this episode here. So make sure you just don't leave the call at just yet.
Lee.
So, all right, everyone. So that was Simba, and here's the after take. Yeah. um, joking. But yeah. So everyone, that is Simba. He's this way on my screen.
Oh,
Yeah. So this is Simba, or do we want to say your name?
you when I
Or
did my life story, I hit them with that. I said, "Hi, my name is Yunuel Misael Cortez Mendez."
fair enough.
Simba.
Yeah, but Simba works. Simba for short. So everyone, this has been Simba, one of the co-hosts for Retrieving Sanity, and as far as I know, we'll be trying to do something more regularly with the two of us so that we have something going. But for now, go ahead and swing on by retrievingsanity.com, the YouTube channel, subscribe over there, Podbean, Spotify, wherever else you can find your podcast, and make sure that you love yourself, love others if you can, but love yourself first, and also just try to be a good person. It's not really that hard. And thanks for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. This is Keegan, and we'll see you later. Out.
Bye. Shalom.
Sean.